Hi, Subhash here with DSF.my, and this here is the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. It's not launched yet. They previewed it back in late March, and then now in April this car is in showrooms already, and in May they expect deliveries to begin. So launch is not there yet, but the car is slowly coming to Malaysia and it will be locally assembled only. So what's so special about this car? Well, Chery Malaysia has already launched the Omoda 5 and the electric version of that. Plus they've launched the Tiggo 8 Pro. So that is kind of like Proton X50 competitor and Proton X90 competitor. The thing that's missing is an X70 competitor, and that's what this is. 7 Pro, X70. That's how you just like get it in your head lah, what they are. So what's really special is, compared to all the other brands like from Korea, from Japan, even from Europe, Chery is the only company that is consistently coming in at 5% price difference between their products and Proton's products. So Omoda 5, inside 5%. Tiggo 8 Pro, also inside 5%. And this one, they expect it to be priced at 130,000 ringgit or less. And if I'm not mistaken, the X70 is just above 123k. So I did the calculations, it's also about 5% different. Remarkable job. So it really will make you think twice about whether you should get the X70, which is actually kind of aging now. It was launched in 2018, or this. So the X70, as you know, 2018 it came out. It got very minor updates over the years, very minor facelift, almost not a facelift at all. And then the new engine, the 1.5T, and then a bit of a spec bump here and there, but it's largely the same car. In China, the Geely version is going through major changes. So Chery coming in with the Tiggo 7 Pro should be something to shake up Proton a little bit. So let's start with the way the car looks. From the back here, actually you immediately see some resemblance to the Proton X70 in this kinked wave over here, just at the D pillar. Even the proportions, I would say, very similar. You get this typical China SUV look, which is somewhere, in my opinion, in between like a European SUV and a Korean SUV, but with some funky design elements. The Chinese car makers like Chery are not afraid to experiment with new things, and you can see that over here on the spoiler. You get like this triple layer spoiler now for whatever reason, and they've got a little blue-green highlight over here. You would not see this on any Korean, European, even Japanese car. They wouldn't do this. But on the Chinese car manufacturers, they don't mind doing stuff like this to entice the customer. So yes, you got that little strip there, and then this tail light here connecting to the other side. That's very reminiscent to me of the Kia Sportage of the previous generation, I think. But yeah, besides that, it's kind of a generic look, just like the Tiggo 8 Pro kind of looks generic. It's not like the Omoda series of cars where it just looks like, whoa, you look at it and it makes you turn your head. The Tiggo series is a bit more conventional, except for like a little bit of flair here and there. The other thing to note is red badges, a little bit of flair again, and there's dual exhaust at the back, but that is typical of these kind of cars. Even the X70, if I'm not mistaken, and the X50 have dual tailpipes. And if I'm not mistaken, they are, oh my god, I don't think they're real. Well, at least one side is lah. This side, there's no tailpipe. The other side, there is an actual tailpipe. So they're not real lah, but they're there for style. Now, let's go around to the side. So the thing that strikes me about the side is how similar it is to the X70. I checked online, the wheelbase is exactly the same as the X70. Dimension wise, they trade blows. So this is a little bit wider, I think 30 millimeters wider. The X70 is like 6 millimeters taller. So you can't say one is bigger than the other. They both kind of trade blows lah. And I don't think you would notice which one is actually bigger. But yeah, dimensionally from the side, especially in this color, the X70 comes with space grey, which is like very close to this. The only thing that really sets it apart compared to the X70 are the red brake calipers. So front and back you get red highlights, and on the door handles you get a little bit of a chrome garnish, which I believe on the Tiggo 8 Pro you also get. And besides that, the only difference is I think it's a little bit more upright. The X70 kind of slopes a little bit more at the back. This one is a little bit taller. So now let's go to the front, and I think here is where you really get to see where Chery did their best work lah. The back to me looks a little bit generic, but the front, they got this very fancy grille, and just like on the Tiggo 8 Pro, you get a lot of little like kind of chrome plated accents. I would say don't go too close, because when you go close then it kind of looks a bit off, but from far away I think it looks good. Besides that, a bit more masculine of a look compared to the Omoda cars, and a little bit more modern of a look compared to the Proton X70. Now, if you compare it to the Proton X70's Chinese cousin, which is the Geely Boye, that one looks a bit more modernized now, but in Malaysia, we don't get that facelift. Here, Chery is bringing the latest and greatest. You get that blue accent, which I talked about earlier, blue-green. You can debate in the comments. Yeah, besides that, very masculine look, very futuristic look, but nothing as extreme as the Omoda. Now, I'm going to go inside and talk to you about the interior. So the interior, I think, is the highlight. Exterior looks a bit generic, but on the inside, the Tiggo 7 Pro really shines. Actually, if you've been in the Tiggo 8 Pro, you'll find this interior very familiar. The only thing that's a bit different this time is instead of using wood grain, they're using carbon fiber. So on the door sills, on the dashboard, it's all this carbon fiber look. It's not really carbon fiber. And on the panels down here, it's aluminum, brushed, very distinct. So it has like the dual 12.3-inch screen, just like in the Tiggo 8 Pro, and it's a little bit curved. I don't think the screens themselves are curved, but the housing itself is very subtly curved to give that very modern BMW 3 Series, Mercedes E-Class kind of look. It's a good touch, and I think when you're in here, it feels like a car double the price. Definitely doesn't feel like a $130,000 car, it feels like a $250,000 car. That's the cabin for you. A lot of leather everywhere, on the door cards, on the seats, upholstery is all leather, and you get some pretty good features as well. I think Proton has kind of deleted the panoramic sunroof on the X70, but here it's available. Not only is it available, it's standard, because there's only one specification of the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. The name is really long. Yeah, besides that, you also get a 50-watt wireless charger, and looks to be ventilated. You get USB-A, USB-C, and something that the Proton X70 doesn't really give you is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's standard on this model as well. Now, in terms of drive, okay, here is where I think the Proton and the Chery really trade blows, because that is a 1.5 turbo 3-cylinder and this is a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder. Chery really like thumps its own chest when it talks about this 1.6 liter motor. They put it in the Omoda, but not in Malaysia. In different countries where they sell the Omoda, this 1.6 liter is also there. It's a very high output engine. For 1.6 liters to output 200 horsepower and I think 290 Newton meters torque, it's very high for that displacement. And you really feel it. The car wheel spins when you ask it to deliver 100% throttle. It's a front-wheel drive powertrain, so front-wheel drive, 7-speed DCT, and a 4-cylinder engine. On paper, it's a very good combination. You know, a lot of power, quite fuel efficient, 4-cylinder smoothness, and turbocharging for that extra power. But in my experience, I've only driven it a day or two, so I can't really say fully, but I know that there are some aspects that I prefer in the Proton X70, and there's some aspects I prefer here. Definitely the only big complaint for me in terms of the drive feel is that the steering is very weightless. So it's a kind of one-finger steering that you used to get in older Honda models. They don't suffer from that anymore. Yeah, besides that, suspension, I think is the biggest strength of this car. It's very comfortable. It's very capable of absorbing bumps. You don't really have to slow down over, you know, undulations in the road and stuff like that. Smoothness is the part where I think there's a little bit of work to do. It's not so bad, but when the car has this whole engine start-stop situation, when the engine comes back alive, there's definitely a few moments of the engine kind of finding its sweet spot, you know, being a little bit rougher than I would like. And even now, when we're idling here, it's at 700 RPM and I can feel that the engine is on. It is definitely humming a little bit. And for a car of this class and in this kind of cabin feel, I don't expect this. This is kind of a B segment feel, even though this is a C segment car that feels double the price, you know. So yeah, very minor complaints. The power is absolutely there. A little bit too much if you ask me. And it definitely gives you something to think about if you're in the market for an X70 versus this. And if I'm not mistaken, I can't find the X70 with the 1.8 liter anymore. They used to have that. If they still have it, then this engine really goes up neck and neck with that, because it's also a 4-cylinder. It's also putting out about as much power. So I think if you're comparing between the Proton and the Chery, those two engines, 1.8 versus this 1.6, is a good comparison. Yeah, In terms of value, should you buy this car? It's up to you. There are a lot of options in the market. I think this car really exists to wake Proton up, because the X70 is the oldest Geely Proton collab at this point. It hasn't gotten enough updates, and yeah, this car comes within 5% of the asking price. At 130,000, it's really priced right. I cannot emphasize that enough. I'm not saying it's super cheap. I'm not saying you should go out there and buy that straight away, but pricing wise, Chery got it better than anyone else in the market. So yeah, good price. It's here to wake up Proton from you know, the X70 just kind of lulling around in the market. Definitely check it out. Impressive interior, good exterior, and competitive specs. Equipment, really good. So yeah, that's the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. Thanks for watching. I'm Subhash for DSF.my.